Ever felt like the house is clean, but your soul isn't? You look around, everything's in place, but inside, something keeps aching. It's that strange kind of silence that shows up when no one's watching. You smile, but deep down, you feel like you're quietly falling apart. After 50, we get good at hiding. We hide the tiredness, the longing, even the things we no longer understand. But at some point, the soul starts to scream. Today, I want to share something that helped me reorganize my life from the inside out. Subscribe to the channel, because maybe you've also been trying to fold your pain in silence. And maybe, just maybe, you deserve to finally breathe. For real. For years, I was a pro at hiding. I stored away what hurt, like old papers stuffed in some drawer of the soul no one opened. I pretended I was fine, said everything was okay, got things done with a polite smile. But inside, my body trembled from an exhaustion that didn't come from work or routine. It was emotional fatigue from holding in feelings that had never been processed. The truth is, what we don't feel builds up. What we don't name becomes invisible weight. And sooner or later, that weight demands space. I noticed it when I started getting angry over little things, when old wounds came back like ghosts in the night. And one day, I found myself crying without knowing why. That's when I remembered a quote by Jung that went something like, "What we don't face within will meet as fate." So I stopped running, sat with myself, no distractions, and let it all come. Old memories showed up, silences that had turned to thorns, frustrations I claimed I'd moved past but still hurt like they happened yesterday. Crying didn't break me. Feeling it, naming it, letting it exist. That was the beginning of the reorganization, because true silence isn't the absence of pain. It's presence with the pain without losing yourself. And you know what I found? When you let a pain speak, it stops screaming. After 50, the soul has carried so much noise that maybe what we most need isn't to forget how we feel, but finally, to listen. And that kind of listening is the first step out of living like someone who tidies the house but sleeps on the floor. For a long time, I beat myself up for not being productive, for not waking up excited, not wanting to go out, not keeping a constant energy. I felt guilty when my calendar was empty, or when Sundays dragged on longer than they should. I looked around, and it seemed like everyone else was living more, doing more. Me, stuck. But one day, while looking out at my mum's backyard, something clicked. That tree I'd always admired, spent months without a single flower. It stood there, strong, but still, no fruit, no fresh leaves, just existing, breathing in its own time. Nature doesn't bloom all year round. So why do I insist on thinking I need to bear fruit non-stop? Jung said the soul has seasons. And after 50, I've started recognizing that in myself. There was an entire year I felt colorless. I thought I was going backwards, but it was just my winter. And in that internal winter, I discovered something beautiful. There's wisdom in resting. There's life in the quiet of the sea, because the soul doesn't renew itself in noise. It finds itself in the dark, when no one sees. When you stop demanding and start listening, honoring your seasons isn't giving up. It's not forcing the flower when the root is still settled. And it's right there, in that time that feels empty, that something begins to grow. Not on the outside, but within. Slow, almost invisible, but deep. After 50, life teaches us that growing often means learning to patiently wait for your own time to bloom. There was a time when I spent more time in my head than in life. I'd replay old conversations, recreate scenes that never happened, imagine better versions of myself for moments that were already gone. And no matter how much I thought, nothing got resolved. The pain stayed. The emptiness kept echoing. The mind, without boundaries, turns into a maze. And a maze doesn't need answers. It needs an exit. After 50, I realized it's no use trying to organize the whole world inside your head. The mind needs silence and limits. It needs to know how far it can go before it starts hurting you. These days, when a thought starts eating away what little peace I've got left, I don't fight it, but I don't invite it to stay either. I pause, I breathe, I write, and I return to the present. Like someone coming home from a long journey without ever leaving. Revisiting the past every day is like tidying the house with the lights off. You move things around, but you keep tripping over. Clarity doesn't come from overthinking. It comes when you stop trying to control everything. And in that surrender, the mind finally rests. Not because it figured things out, but because it finally let go. After 50, I've learned that overthinking isn't wisdom. It's just fear, dressed up as logic. And where there's fear, true silence can't live. I've always been the sharing type. I'd talk about my plans, share my intentions, announce my attempts at change, like I needed witnesses to validate my efforts. It was my way of asking for help, without admitting I was lost. But over time, I noticed something subtle. The more I talked about what I wanted to change, the less I actually changed. It was like putting it out there, drained the strength that hadn't even taken root in me yet. After 50, I've learned that the most real transformations begin in the dark. They're not shouted or posted or applauded. They happen in silence, in long nights and quiet inner conversations that no one else sees. It's in the silence that the roots grow. It's in the absence of an audience that the foundation gets strong. True change doesn't need a spotlight. It needs time, solitude, and listening. I stopped announcing and started holding. And in that silent holding, new versions of myself began to emerge. Ones I never knew were still in there. Calmer, deeper, more mine. When change happens in the dark, it doesn't ask for proof. It shows itself in how you are, in a look that doesn't weigh, in a breath that isn't rushed, in a voice that doesn't compete. After 50, I've realized, those who build in the dark will one day bloom in the light without needing to explain a thing. I've always admired people who spoke little, but said so much. People who didn't rush to fill the silence, but filled it with presence. Those people moved me, even when I couldn't explain why. For a long time, I thought it was a kind of healthy envy. Then I figured it was just admiration. But slowly, I realized what touched me in them was what lay dormant in me. The peace I saw in them was what my body was begging for. The calm way they looked at the world was the same calm my chaotic days were longing to reclaim. We get emotional over what we recognize, even if we haven't lived it yet, even if it still hurts not to have it. After 50, I started paying more attention to what made me cry for no clear reason. A gentle voice, a slow gesture, a soft, welcoming gaze. It wasn't about them. It was about me. It was my soul saying, look, this exists in you too. It's just forgotten, just buried. Often, what touches us in others isn't lack. It's an invitation to return inward, to dig through old layers, to realize that the sensitivity you've been searching for already lives in you, just shy. After 50, what moves you in others is a mirror of the version of yourself you could still become, and maybe deep down already are. You just need to let it show. The biggest decluttering I've ever done wasn't in the house, wasn't with money, or in my routine. It was in the silence of things no one sees, of pains that were never spoken, of pauses that were never allowed. After 50, I've realized the true fresh start doesn't come from big decisions. It comes from small moments of listening, from gentle things only you can offer yourself. To organize the soul is to name what's been tucked away for decades. It's letting the tears come without explanation. It's stopping the fight to be understood and beginning to understand yourself. It's lifting the noise off your shoulders, shedding the weight of others' expectations. It's making room in your chest for a kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. You still have time to reorder those invisible drawers, to clean the emotional dust gathered in the corners of memory, to sit in silence with yourself and stop running. And maybe your biggest win now isn't doing more, but feeling more truthfully, living more lightly, breathing with more meaning. If something in this video stirred something in you, drop me a note in the comments. I read each one like letters never sent. And tell me, What have you had to reorganize in silence after 50? Because sometimes it's only when everything goes quiet that the soul finally finds the space to come back to life.